everybody, and welcome back to From the Nosebleeds, podcast brought to you by myself and Jacob Wetzel. I am covering college football previews for every single conference. Yes, that's every single conference. Previously to Conference USA, the conference I probably know the least about. Let me know how I did on that conference preview. Let me know what your thoughts are on the series as a whole, what I can do better, what I can go more in depth on, what I could touch a little less on. Today, we've got some MACtion preview. I love the MAC. You get a lot of weekday games, 7 o'clock on Tuesday, up in Toledo, stuff like that. It's great. A lot of weird things happen in the MAC, but a lot of great players also come from the MAC. So I think it's important to hit on all these conferences because there are great players that turn into great NFL players coming from all these conferences that you may not know about. In my job here during these previews is to give you those players and give you maybe a Cinderella team that could make a run at a New Year's Six Bowl, could challenge one of these Goliaths, quote unquote. So that's what I'm doing here with this series, starting out with the group of five, and then I'll get into the Power Five conferences. But let's dive right into the MAC. First off, I'm going to give you some futures I like in the MAC, and we're going to start with Kent State at plus 1,500 to win the conference, and over 5 wins at plus 120. Yes, that's plus money for over 5 wins. Last I saw, they were at 5 wins on Vegas. If it's still that, or even 5.5, I'd take it. I think they win 6 easily. And I honestly think they could push for a MAC title game appearance. I'll get into why I think so later on. Next bet I like is Ball State at plus 325 to win the MAC. Ball State's the defending champs. They bring a lot of guys back. I really like this team. They finished strong last year. They bulldozed their way through 3 of their last 4 games, including a big win over San Jose State in their bowl game. I like this team a lot. I think they're really good. I think they could be a potential Cinderella team. I think they might win 10 plus games this year. And that's why I've got their win total at over 8 at plus 100. So it's even money there. I really like it. I think they're going to get to 9 pretty easily. And like I said, I think they could potentially be pushing that 10-win range, potentially being ranked or in the conversation of being ranked at the end of the year. Next bet I really like is Buffalo under 8.5 wins. If you get it from anywhere from 8.5 to 7.5, I take the under. I think this team's gonna have a setback. They lost Leopold, their head coach, just now getting their system organized and everything. So I think this team takes a step back. Not a huge one, but I'll go into more of that later. Next, Toledo over 8.5 wins. Toledo on the other side of the conference from, Buffalo and Kent State. Sorry. They're on the same side as Ball State. I really like Toledo. A lot of people have them winning their side of the division and playing for the MAC title game. I think this is a very good team. And I think they've got one of the easier non-conference schedules for MAC teams. I think they could easily win 3 games in their non-conference and then win 5 or 6 in conference play, and that'll get them to 9 wins. I really like this team. They're really good, and that's why I have them at over 8.5. Next team I've got is Western Michigan. Western Michigan over 6 wins at minus 110. I think this team gets to 6 wins pretty easily. I think they're going to have a little bit of struggles in their non-conference. It's tougher. Usually MAC teams get a lot of Big 10 opponents, a lot of Big 12, things like that. I think they're going to struggle there, but I think they're going to do really well in the MAC. I think they hit 6 wins. You might push this, but still, I think it's worth taking the chance on the off chance that they get to 7. With that being said, I will go into my conference predictions for where these teams finish. I'll start out in the East Division. I've got Kent State coming in atop the conference. I've got Ohio number 2. I've got Miami of Ohio number 3. I've got Buffalo down to number 4. A lot of your early previews are going to have Buffalo 1 because, that was before the coaching change. I think they do take a hit. Again, like I've said, I think they take a hit. I think they're still going to be good. I still think they're going to be a competitive team, but I think having so little time to adjust to the new coach's system philosophies. Yes, he was a part of Leopold's coaching tree, but doesn't mean as a head coach he wants to do everything the same. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a transition period, especially in the early games, and you could drop a couple that you're not supposed to. So I just think it's best to play them safe down further in the pecking order right now. I think they'll be fine long run. They've been a pretty good program since the early 2010s. So I think they'll be fine. After that, I've got Akron and Bowling Green. These are two pretty bad teams that haven't won a lot of games in the last 3 years. I think Akron's slowly moving in the right direction. His third year under their head coach. He got his first win last year in resounding fashion over Bowling Green. And I think they're moving in the right direction. I think Bowling Green's still not moving in the right direction. This could be this coach's last year at Bowling Green. They might have to, tear everything down and build it back up again. That's how I've got the East. In the West, I've got Ball State 1, Toledo 2, Western Michigan 3, Central Michigan 4, Eastern Michigan 5, and Northern Illinois at the bottom at number 6. In the title game, I've got Ball State over Kent State. I just think this Ball State team's too good, too experienced for Kent State to come in there and beat them. Now we'll go over why I like some of these teams and my thought process in picking uh, some of these futures that I gave out to start the MAC preview. Kent State, why I like this team a lot. I think Dustin Crum is the best returning quarterback in the conference. He put up a lot of really good numbers last year, almost 300 yards per game, had a 6-to-1 touchdown to INT ratio. He was a stud. They returned the entire offensive line, their starting running back, their starting wide receivers. There's a lot to like about this team. They averaged 49.8 points per game last year, 600 yards per game on offense. They added Nykeem Johnson, a Syracuse transfer and wide receiver slash punt returner. He averaged about 20 yards, over 20 yards per kick return, over 10 yards per punt return. Those are pretty good numbers. He's going to give them a little more on offense as well. And in the return game, I just really like this offense. This defense needs to step it up a little bit. Last year, weren't exactly that good on defense, among the bottom in terms of scoring, yards per game, and especially rushing yards per game. If you remember, they gave up a ton of yards to Buffalo's Jarrett Patterson last year. He had over 400 yards and 8 touchdowns in a single game. However, they've been giving up 5.7 yards per carry the last 2 years. However, they bring in a freshman CJ West at nose tackle. He's 338 pounds. They brought in some other players to kind of help clog up that middle so they don't give up that by almost 6 yards per carry like they have been averaging the last 2 years. They also have 3 secondary transfers to help shore up that secondary, along with the returning starters that they bring back in the secondary. I think they are going to definitely step it up on the defensive side of things. I think Sean Lewis is doing a great job there, and he could be a candidate for your Power 5 team in the near future, especially if they play how I think they will this year. And that's why I like them to come out of the East Division and play in that MAC title game. There's an outside shot they could win it. That's why I give out the plus 1500, because if they're playing in the game, who knows what happens. And plus 1500, you're not going to get a better line when it comes to championship game time. So might as well lay it at 15 plus 1500 now, reap the benefits later. I really, really like this team. I think they're going to shock a lot of people. They have pretty tricky 4-game non-conference schedule at A&M. Hosting VMI should be a win. At Iowa and at Maryland, those are 3 really tough Power 5 teams to draw. So they might start out like 1-3. but a lot of their conference games, big conference games, are at home. So I really like this team going forward this year. Next, we'll talk about Ball State. Ball State, the defending MAC champions, they won their last 7 games, and they won 3 of their last 4 by double digits, including wins. And those 3 wins came over Central Michigan, Buffalo, and San Jose State. Yes, they beat Buffalo by double digits, even though it seemed like Buffalo was crushing everybody. I think everybody was on Buffalo in the MAC title game. They ended up pretty not handle I wouldn't say handily winning that game, but they did win by a comfortable margin. They return a lot on offense and defense. I think they've got the best returning offensive line after what's happened with Buffalo. They return 9 starters on defense, return all special teamers. Plitt, Tyler, and Hall are going to be a dynamic aerial attack. Hall has the most receptions among active FBS players. He's a dynamic player. He can also get it done in the return game as well. I think Brandon Martin is a name to keep an eye on for this defense. He's the best middle linebacker in this conference, was co-defensive player of the year last year. He flies all around the field. I think some draft teams, or excuse me, some NFL teams are going to be looking at him to fill a Devin White type role, where they cover and everything like that, do everything for him. I think he's going to play in the NFL and potentially be a very good middle linebacker in the NFL. I think that's why I like this Ball State team. They return all that. Plus, they have a pretty favorable non-conference slate. They've got Western Illinois to start it out. At Penn State's going to be a tough one. At Wyoming's another tricky one, and then home to Army. Those are 3 tricky FBS teams to play against. However, 2 of those 3 are definitely winnable. I think Penn State's going to be better than they were last year, so I don't see that as winnable. But the other 2, Wyoming and Army, I see as winnable. Wyoming's going to be better than last year, but I still think Ball State's better than them. I think Army's beatable at home for Ball State. And I just, seeing everything last year where they had this sort of resiliency after losing that first game to roll off and win 7 straight, I think they could do something similar, even if they got off to like a 2-4 start, or 2-3 start. Let's say they get off to the 2-3 start, not looking great. I think they could run the table. That's why I like their over 8 wins, and I like them to win the MAC yet again. I think they're the best returning team, hands down, offense, defense. Combined as a team, I think that's the best team and the team to beat. Everybody's going to be out to get. Next, we've got Toledo. I like this Toledo team. I think they're very talented. They are in the same division as Ball State. A lot of people have them winning the conference. They return all 11 starters. The only starter they don't return on offense is the quarterback, and that's the only reason I don't have them winning the conference. I think it's important. It's not detrimental. It's not end of the world if you don't return your quarterback, but I think it helps Ball State's case, making it that much easier when they do return that quarterback. That's really the only biggest question mark with Toledo in my mind is the quarterback play. You don't know what you're going to get. They return a pretty solid defense. Pretty stout last year, was top 5 in most major categories on defense. So it's really on what kind of quarterback play you're going to get. I think you know what you're going to get out of Ball State. Thanks to note 2 out of their 2 losses they had last year, they were both 3-point losses. They were in those games till the end. Could have gone either way. They don't. I like this team a lot. I think they could potentially knock off Ball State. The only question I've got is at the quarterback position. That's why I give Ball State the nod here. Next team I'll talk about is Western Michigan. Another team I really like. Again, I have them over 6. I think they're going to get to 6 wins. And on an off chance that they get to 7, I think it's worth delaying the minus 110. It's pretty much even money at this point. So I think it's just worth it playing that because they return a lot on offense. They return almost their entire offensive line, a lot of seniors, four of them seniors. So they've had a lot of experience. Two starting receivers come back. Probably the second best quarterback in this conference, in Caleb Ellaby, had a 9-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio last year. He was almost 300 yards per game as well last year. A very unique wide receiver and Sky Moore, great name. I just think they're a little young in the skill positions. They've got two sophomore starting wide receivers. Ellaby's a sophomore. Their left tackle, the only one that's not a returning starter, is a freshman. That's the blind side for Ellaby that makes me worried a little bit. First time playing collegiate ball against some of these defensive guys that have been there 3-4 years. So I just worry about that. Defensive starters, they return a decent amount, but they're, again, a little younger on the defensive side. I think this is a build up year for next year. I think next year is really the year that they go all in and could potentially win this conference outright. Since Tim Lester has taken over for PJ Fleck, they've kind of underperformed. They need a little more consistent of defensive play, have to force more turnovers and take care of the ball more on the offensive side. That's why I've got them there. I still like them. I still think they're a really good team. I think they're going to challenge some teams in their non-conference like San Jose State, Pitt. I think even maybe Michigan they challenge just because of that dynamic offense that they're going to bring in. Like this team, I think they're going to make a lot of noise. I just think they're a year away. Last team I'll hit on is Buffalo, and why I think you should pump the brakes on that they're going to, do what they did last year. They lost their head coach. They're only returning 10 starters. Also subtract another 4 players that would have been starters this year that left with Leopold when he went to Kansas. So only returning 10 starters from last year. You get a new coach. I know he's from the same system or coaching tree, but he could have different philosophy systems. It might take some time to adjust. He's just starting, at the middle of May, end of May. That's right when training camp's getting in. So he doesn't have a whole lot of time. I think there's going to be an adjustment period, especially this year. I think that adjustment period leads to some unlucky losses where normally in years past under Leopold, you'd probably get, some luck go your way. I think it's going to be the opposite this year. And that's why I'm a little down on them. And I think everybody else should pump the brakes on them a little bit. I don't think this is going to be a bad team by any means. I think they're going to be competitive in every single game almost. It's just I think it's going to be a little bit of adjustment. The luck it won't be on their side, and that's why I'm down on them. I'll give you some more players to watch out for who could be potential draft picks in the coming years. I mentioned Dustin Crum, running back out of Buffalo, Kevin Marks Jr. We all remember Jarrett Patterson last year. Kevin Marks was his running mate and still averaged over 100 yards per game, even when Jarrett Patterson was out there running for over 200 yards per game. Very, very good running back as well. He takes over the load from Jarrett Patterson. I think he'll have a monster year. Justin Hall hit on him for Ball State, very dynamic player. I think he's going to do a lot of good things for Ball State in their quest for a repeat. Brandon Martin, I hit on him earlier. I think he's the best defensive player they've got in this conference. I think he's probably a future pro. I think second, third round is probably when you'll see him be taken off the board. I like what he does a lot. Jarrett Patterson's brother, James Patterson, is on that Buffalo defense. He's a very good player. Should be first team all conference. Might contend with Brandon Martin for conference defensive player of the year. Should be fun to watch. Caleb Ellaby for Western Michigan. This is his sophomore year, so this is building. He could build up a very good resume going into his junior, senior year, where he makes a case for being a Heisman candidate. Ladarius Jefferson, the running back out of Western Michigan, is also very good. Sky Moore, another good wide receiver out of Western Michigan. I think there are two players to watch out for Central Michigan. Khalil Pimpleton, who does it all, and Lou Nichols. These are two very good players. I keep an eye on. They're going to be good. They're going to be dynamic. They're going to keep Central Michigan in a lot of these games. Lou Nichols is just a freshman, so he'll be a name for years to come in this conference. Drew Plitt, mentioned him earlier, quarterback for Ball State. I think he's going to play a big role if they're going to do what I think they're going to do and repeat as champions. Johannes Tyler out of Ball State, another wide receiver. He's a bigger frame than Justin Hall, 6'3", 204. Could get some NFL looks with that frame on the outside. That's my takeaways from the MAC. I'll give you a little rundown of how things finished last year. Buffalo won the East Division at 5-0 and were 6-1 overall. Only loss came to Ball State in the title game. Kent State was 3-1 overall and in the MAC. Miami of Ohio was 2-1 overall and in the MAC. Ohio was 2-1 overall and in the MAC. Akron was 1-5. Bowling Green was 0-5. Ball State was 5-1 in the MAC and 7-1 overall. Western Michigan was 4-2 last year. Toledo was 4-2 last year. Central Michigan was 3-3 last year. Eastern Michigan was 2-4 last year, and Northern Illinois was 0-6 last year. That's a rundown of the MAC. Stay tuned, as next we'll be getting into the Fun Belt.